It's time for a little comedy, a little content, and a lot of conversation. It's the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube. Now here's your host, Geno Jones.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Yes, it is showtime. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching. It is time for the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show right here on my YouTube channel. I do the show live Monday through Friday around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 5:30 if you're in Chicago or St. Louis or Memphis or Houston. 3:30 if you're out in Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Portland or Seattle. And let's see, if you're in Hawaii, it's It's 12:30. It's noon. You're having lunch, right? Right. Okay, listen, coming up, I got a special guest. He's an author. All my guests are special, but this is a good friend of mine. This man he's an author. He is an anti-domestic violence advocate. Also, he's an advocate in terms of just being a positive mentor and role model to young men and young women. You get a chance to meet him, and we're going to talk about his new book titled A Man Like Me. It's going to be a very powerful conversation. But first, all right, you can't want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves. That was a hard lesson I learned, about 22 decades ago, over 20 years ago. Someone told me that you can't want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves. Why do I say that? I say that because people want and need results. I am now speaking to, once again, President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and not just you all, to all the politicians who need to remember that you, maybe let's say by profession, you would be described as a politician. But your job description, if you really kind of drill down, what is a politician? What is a politician's real purpose? Is to be a public servant, to serve the public, to use the power and the prestige that you were given by the people who voted for you. Use that power for good, to make their lives, not your life, to make their lives better. Hence, that's why you are considered and called a public official. Now, I know a lot of politicians don't get that. I'm a public servant part of a politician. They kind of serve themselves. But I digress. But once again, so you can't want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves. So if the Republicans, I'm speaking to you now, if the Republicans and maybe one or two Democrats, if you want to be bipartisan, stop nickel and diming the American people. Can we stop doing that? Especially stop nickel and diming the American people making between $50,000 and $75,000 a year. And it's not just the Republicans. Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, stop nickel and diming people. People need money. You have people that are thousands of dollars in the hole. There's some people that have not worked since April. It's February. We are 3 weeks away from when this pandemic really hit, when we've had our first shutdowns in March, with just cities in the country, businesses, everything came to a halt. You have some people that have been out of work for 10 going on 11 months. They are thousands of dollars behind in their rent. If they haven't lost their apartment or lost their home, probably lost their cars, just bills, credit cards maxed out, utility bills, had to call and try to work out some agreement so they could keep their power on. People are hurting. People need shots in their arms. They need food assistance. They need rent assistance. They need a moratorium so they won't be evicted. You got people who are hungry that need food assistance, rent assistance right now. And stop nickel and diming people about this. $15 minimum wage. Senator Manchin, I heard you say that, well, you know, in West Virginia, a family's making $150,000 a year. Okay, but then this whole thing about, well, you know, 50,000 may be a little bit much. Maybe if you make 40 and under 40,000, dude, $50 to $75,000 a year may sound like a lot. It may be a lot in West Virginia, but it is not a lot in Chicago, in New York City, in Atlanta, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. It's not in Dallas, in Houston, in Philadelphia. That's not a lot of money at all. So even this $1,400 a month, that won't cover rent. Do you know what the average rent is in America? $1,800 a month. The average rent in America today is $1,800. And if you've got a family and you've got car note and you haven't worked, if you've got children and they have to be fed, and God forbid if anybody needs medicine in the family, if you have prescription medicines that you've got to refill every month, not to mention the hole that you've gotten in, maybe you are making $50,000, that's no money. Especially if a family's trying to live off that, really. So stop nickel and diming people about this $1,400 and about the $15 an hour. If you work 40 hours a week and you get paid $15 an hour, you know what that is? That's only $30,000 a year. That's poverty wages right there. Who and where are you going to live, especially if you are young and single, and then that's still tight. You're not going to be living the good life, the bon vie. You're not going to be going to Jamaica and Maui and traveling and going to Vegas. Now, even if you're single and young, off $30,000 a year. So stop nickel and diming Americans that need this money. Listen, 4 years ago, some of you sane people in Washington, you voted for this tax cut for corporations and billionaires. And it blew a $3 trillion, with a T, it blew a $3 trillion hole in this deficit and the budget. And none of you all said a damn thing. I didn't, Senator Manchin, I didn't hear a peep out of you, these Republican senators and House of Representative members. I didn't hear a peep out of none of them. They were quiet. It was like crickets. It was so quiet, you could have heard a rat piss on cotton. That's how quiet they were. They were okay with corporations and billionaires, and I'm not begrudging billionaires, but damn, the billionaires are the few people that have really made out. Jeff Bezos is even worth more money now than he was last March. The dude is stepping down from Amazon, because Amazon is made out like the mob. If you got stock, the family that owns Publix, that the daughter of the founder gave Orange Hitler's organization, you know what I'm talking about, the son of Satan, yeah, that dude that just got out of the White House, gave them $300,000 to help put together that insurrection, the speeches and everything that people gave on January 6th before they stormed the Capitol. Well, that whole event was financed by one of the daughters of the founders of Publix supermarket. Now, I guess I'm gonna have to find another supermarket. And I hate that because I love Publix. I mean, the customer service is great, but that's a different conversation. So, if we bipartisan, it's got to be a two-way street. Bi means two. All right, it can't be a one-way street. And let's stop nickel and dime people, because listen, bottom line is the American people, they don't care. They don't give a damn. They don't even know. Listen, they couldn't, if they were on Jeopardy and could win $100,000, most Americans couldn't even define bipartisanship. Hell, they probably couldn't even spell it. They don't care about bipartisanship. They don't care about the process and all that. They want results. They need results now. Actually, we needed results like yesterday. So, results. President Biden, I'm going to say it one more time. People want results. You know, bipartisanship is nice. If the Republicans develop a conscience or a soul and say, you know what, we want to really help all the American people, let's do it. Stop playing the games. Do what you got to do. Whatever it takes, reconciliation, whatever you got to do, whatever you want to call it, reconciliation, gangster, deboing, Bogart, whatever you need to do, get people. This is my last piece of advice that you didn't ask for, President Biden. If you can show the American people that the government, the federal government, can make their lives better, if you can show everyday Americans that you can make their everyday lives better and do it quickly, you will be in power. Your party will be in power for 2 generations, for another 20, 30, 40 years. Because I guarantee you, even the people that didn't vote for you, even the people that voted for that orange son of Satan, I guarantee you, when you start sending those $1,400 checks out, they ain't sending them back. As a matter of fact, they'll be like, this is nice. I'm still in the hole. Could you send me another $1,400? I guarantee you. Some of those domestic terrorists that stormed the Capitol, that was looking to lynch Vice President Pence and was looking to kill Nancy Pelosi, some of those same terrorists, I guarantee you, I bet they're looking for a check in the mail. People need money. People want money. Results. That's what we need. We don't need to hear about bipartisanship, unpartisan, tripartisan, none of that. People want to hear, when is this check going to hit my bank account? When am I going to see this check in the mail? Because I need it. I'm behind in my rent. I'm behind in my car note. I'm about to be evicted from my apartment. I'm about to lose my home. When this moratorium ends, I'm behind in my student loan. I've been going to food banks for the last 7, 8, 9 months because I don't have enough money to make sure. I have to choose between feeding my children and buying medicine to keep me or my spouse, or helping my elderly, my sick parent or parents or grandparents alive. This is real, man. As they say, you know what? It's just got real. It's got very real out here, and it's very real for millions of Americans. Now, some folks in Washington may not understand that, but that's the real. All right, so much from the monologue. That's my rant. I had to get that off my chest today. Time for me to bring on my guest. Like I said, he's an author. He's an anti-domestic violence advocate. I'm honored to I've been working with this brother for some time. Also, he is a huge advocate in terms of being a positive mentor and role model to young men. He's got a brand new book titled, A Man Like Me, My Journey to Manhood and the Mistakes I Made Along the Way. I think I got that right. Mr. Butch Kennedy, I'm bringing to the show right now. There he is on camera. My brother, how we doing?
Hey, Geno, how's it going, buddy?
Did I finally get that title right, man?
Yeah, man, you got it. You nailed it, man. I loved your monologue, by the way, man. I loved it, man. I wanted to jump in, but you know how it is, man.
Oh.
You know the temperature. You know the temperature that we're in today, man. And,
jump right in right now.
Anybody that was surprised by January 6th wasn't paying attention. I wasn't surprised at all, man. I could see the temperature of a certain demographic of people that were prepared to do what they thought they were doing because they figured they were losing their country, man.
Yeah.
And how could they figure that, man, when you have everything?
Right.
You know what I mean? You have everything, and there's a segment of people that have absolutely nothing, man. Just like you said, there's people out there that can't pay their mortgage, they can't pay nothing, they don't have a job, they lost their job, they got COVID, they're fighting COVID. Man, it's been a lot going on in this country, man. And now we want Biden to just save us from it all. Because that other dude who was there before, man, spent 4 years, man, basically, tearing this country apart. As far as he was too divisive, man. I mean, it's hard to. What happened to United in the United States of America, man? It was just gone, man, for 4 years, man.
And let me just.
I'm ex-military. So that was hard for me, buddy.
I could imagine. Yeah, and I want to I'm glad you mentioned that. We talked about it and I forgot, but I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to address that. But let me just kind of piggyback on something that you were saying earlier in this conversation, just talking about they feel like they're losing their country. Unless you are a Native American, this ain't your country. If we just really want to go down this rabbit hole, all right, we are all immigrants. Some of us voluntarily, some of our ancestors were voluntarily immigrants. Some of us were not voluntarily. Our immigrants or our ancestors didn't immigrate here voluntarily. But the bottom line is the only people really that have claim to this land is primarily the Native Americans. We could also include the Mexicans that really, because remember, southern Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California, that was Mexico. All right, remember that.
A lot of people miss that point, Geno. A lot of people miss that point. Not all Indians stayed and fought. Some of them went to Mexico, man. They wasn't gonna fight, so they just, in my opinion, man, they're entitled to this land. This land is your land. This land is my land.
But that land, the whole Alamo battle, that southern Texas, why think they call it New Mexico? What we know is like San Diego, even Los Angeles. That was all Mexico initially.
All of it.
So if the Native Americans are really the only ones that's got the right to say, listen, this is you don't have to go home, but you need to get the heck up out of here, ladies and gentlemen, because this is my house here. So and Butch, as I do this is what I love about doing when you're doing live TV and you forget to cut your ringer off and your phone starts ringing. But you were talking about we were talking about the military. You are retired military, and
well, I didn't retire.
Okay.
I actually didn't retire. I did 4 years in the Air Force, and I was offered too much money to stay in the Air Force.
Okay.
I
got you. But
there's a whole story behind
it. You served the country.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were in the military, and what we're learning more and more every day is that there were a lot of retired military, some possibly active military members, but I remember 10 years ago, there have been several studies and several reports. As a matter of fact, within the last year, Christopher Wray, who is the current head of the FBI, said that the biggest domestic terroristic threat is from white nationalism and those who believe in quote unquote white supremacy and your white right-wing militia groups. As a matter of fact, about a decade ago, there was a report that came out. The FBI released a report saying that that white nationalist groups, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, and KKK, they were actively trying to embed themselves in local, county, state, federal law enforcement positions and the military. Now, I'm bringing that up because you can probably speak to that because I've talked to more than a few brothers and sisters who have been, still in, currently active or retired or reserve in the military. It's like, listen, we're not surprised by because this element has existed. There have been black men and women that have tried to point this out in the military, which is a whole nother conversation. So were you not surprised when you saw and heard about the retired military members and some active military who were lieutenant colonels and more, who were part of the storming of the Capitol on January 6th?
Not in the least, Geno, not in the least, man. I've had so many conversations with people that I served with, right? And they didn't understand my point of view. And I had to try to break it down to people, about, especially when it came to George Floyd, man. And it was very, very difficult for me to have this conversation with people about, how it felt to watch a police officer sit on someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And people condone that. And I couldn't fathom that. I could never get that in my head, that people that I served with, people that I called my brothers, my comrades in arms, and to this day, I can pick up the phone and they'll do anything in the world for me. And the sad reality is that they don't see me. You know what I mean? That's the sad reality. They always have this thing, I don't see color. I don't see color. Well, then you don't see me. I mean, you got to look at me, man. You've known me for years. We've been in the hole together. We've worked together for years. And if you don't understand this, you don't understand my pain, then maybe we need to have a conversation. So we had those conversations, and they were difficult, man.
Well, you know, let's go there, because you just said something that when you really wrap your brain around it, because I got family who served in different branches of the military. I've got a first cousin who he made a career out of the Marines. He was probably in the Marines for almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. So I've talked to men and women who've served in different, in Desert Storm, and that was in Iraq. And you talk about mm-hmm. like the bond when you guys are on the front line, or you're out there in the battle, that you guys literally, there's almost like a blood bond that you would, you know.
It's a brotherhood, man.
Yes.
It is a brotherhood.
So,
but
here's the twist. Let me ask you. Here's the twisted thing, because you said you had conversations with mm-hmm. some men and maybe some women, that you all had that bond, almost like a blood bond, that you all would put your life on the line to protect them. So how can you feel that way at that moment, and then when we're out of that environment, not see my humanity as a black man? I don't understand. How do you compartmentalize? Did you ask? Did they explain how they can reconcile? I love you. I can see you and love you as a brother. I can see the humanity in you, and I want to protect you. But then once we're out of that environment, I can't see your humanity.
Well, you know what they were able to do was detach me from them. You understand what? To me, I was not them.
Yeah,
to me, I wasn't George Floyd. You know what I mean?
And
that's where my problem lies. That's where my problem lies. I mean, they beat all the way around the bush. And to be honest with you, man, the field that I was in the military, there were only maybe one other black person that was in that field, with maybe two. So it was predominantly a white group of people that I worked with, right? So when they saw me, you know, it was a little different, because they all had these preconceived notions of what black people were like. And then they finally met black people, and they're like, oh, okay, well, they're different, but they're a lot like us. So they loved us, man. We were in their homes. We spent the nights with them. We did cookouts. We did everything together, man. We were like a family. We go everywhere together, man. And for them to understand, and I wanted to make sure that they understood that George Floyd could have been me, and they didn't get it. Walter Scott could have been me. They didn't get it, because I wasn't going to run from the police. You know, I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do any of that. But they don't understand, and a lot of people, they can just compartmentalize, and they can just put you to a different category, right? It's not like it's not like I'm black, right? That's the way they look at it. He's not like them, but I am them.
Thank you. You hit the nail right. See, you were, but you're not one of them. You're a magical Negro. You know, right? You know, we're like, you know, so many times I'm just keeping it 1,000. You know, white folks will see a black person and see our genius and our brilliance and success, and like, but because they've been brainwashed for, I mean, you know, let's be honest, we've done 402 years. There's been a brainwashing in terms of how black. Listen, the original Constitution, it was codified in law that we as black people were not even full humans. We were 3/5 human. And everything that's been taught in history books, or not taught, I should say, it's like the miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Woodson wrote the book. The miseducation of America, because really, white America's been miseducated and lied to in terms of what we as black people are capable of, not just what we're capable of, what we have done. We can go all the way back to the era where they built the pyramids in Egypt, to the Moors in Spain. I don't even have to go down that rabbit hole of history, but that history is not taught. Right. And then all that genius and creativity and talent was suppressed. And we were brought here to provide free labor to generate wealth and that's a whole different rabbit hole. But what you said is important, and I want people to understand that.
Well, Geno, it hasn't changed at all, man. Because
No.
now what I do, I'm actually an engineer, so I do work for the government, and I am one of the only one that looks like me that does that. So I'm still having these same conversations now with the people that see me every day, that work with me every day, right?
Wow.
And they don't get it, they don't understand, and a lot of them, some of them are my Facebook friends, right, as well, and they don't understand, some of my posts. They say, well, why would you post this, or why would you say that? I don't understand. I mean, I wanted to comment, but I don't think people would have understood what I was trying to say. So they want to spend, and sometimes I can't even leave work because they want to stop me at the door, and they want to explain or rationalize their behavior or their thought process as to how they got to where they're at. And they don't really understand, there are people behind the gunshot. There's people behind the Walter Scotts. There's people behind the George Floyd. And the sad reality is we talk about them, but we forget about the most marginalized person in this country, and that's the Black woman. We don't talk about Breonna Taylor. We need to talk about her. We don't talk about Sandra Bland.
Oh man,
all of them, man. And it, to me, at some point, it was just too much. It was just too much. You know what I mean? And I had gotten to the point where, I kind of, like had to digress. I had to get away because, I know who I am. I know how I am. And I just needed to move away. I just needed to get out of that environment. But
brother, I understand. It's tough being that magical Negro. It is. Wow, you're different. No, I'm not different. Not at all.
Yeah.
The only difference is I got an opportunity. That's the only difference.
Right.
And I think this will be
Right.
a great segue into your book,
Right.
A Man Like
Right.
Me, My Journey to Manhood and the Mistakes I Made Along the Way. And something you said, I want to go back to it real quick and then let you go ahead and talk about the book and tell your story.
Right.
That you could have been George Floyd. I could have been George Floyd.
Right.
You could have been Walter Scott. I could have been Walter Scott. We both are here in the Charleston metro area. I very easily could have been Walter Scott. He was murdered not even 3 miles, about 2 miles from where I live. So that very easily could have been me. I grew up in Chicago. That's a whole nother story when it comes to the police in Chicago. So you or me, many times I've had experiences in Los Angeles. So we all have so many experiences of interactions with law enforcement when all we were doing was just showing up, being the best version of ourselves, not breaking any laws, not doing anything illegal, not possessing anything illegal, and still were treated like a criminal. And we could have been Walter Scott. We could have been like Brother George Floyd or so many others. So let's talk about A Man Like Me, My Journey to Manhood and the Mistakes I Made Along the way. And a lot of, I'm sure it's very relevant to the times that we're living in. Was that the inspiration for writing the book?
Well, the inspiration for me to write the book was plain and simple. Every year, I have a nonprofit organization, and every year I get to have conversations with men, and I talk to men about, what it is to be a man. And in those conversations, I realize that we as men have a lot in common, right? I mean, we as men all go on a journey. All of us go on a journey. We might take different roads, we might take different paths, but we're all on that same journey. So in this book, I tell stories about my life, and I tell how I got from point A to point B. But, in that journey, a lot of things that I talk about in the journey, most men can relate to. All the men that have read it thus far, it's like, man, you talking about me. You're talking about me. So I wrote the book basically to give men an idea, of what it's like to go through that path who haven't been there yet, right? Because eventually somebody's going to get to that point and they're going to say, man, okay, so Butch, this happened to Butch too as well. And I read in his book that this is what he did. And I might try that, or I might try something else, but at least, I know. A good friend of mine, Papa Smurf, always says, if I go down a hallway, right, and I see the boogeyman down the hallway, right, and I come back and I tell you, hey, don't go down the hallway because the boogeyman's down there, and you go down anyway and the boogeyman gets you, then that's not my fault, right? Because I've done what I was supposed to do. I told you what was going on. And that was one of the philosophies I went by, man. And I talked about my stories from adolescence for all the way to now. And basically, I talked about the men in my life and how they impacted my life and how they motivated me to become a better man. But it took a woman. It took a woman actually to make me change my thought process about, things about my manhood. And that's what I talk about.
So
It took a lot. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was hard because I had to do a lot of introspection. I had to look at myself, and I had to become accountable for my mess. Because all my life, a lot of people don't know this, but at 12 years old, I was on a band. And this band played at the Carolina Coliseum, Township Auditorium. I had grown women screaming my name when I was on stage at 12 years old.
wow.
Where do you go from there, man? You know what I mean? Where do you go from there? And then I was a DJ. So I did all that from 12 years old to 23 before I joined the military. And that life from 12 to 23, man, it's like almost like a blur, but it was just a constant party. And I talk about that. I talk about the women that I was involved with. I talk about the relationships that I was involved with. I talk about, the good parts and the bad parts and a whole lot of ugly parts in my life as well, parts that I'm not proud of. But I shared with men, and I shared in this book because I wanted men to understand that we as men are resilient, because we're going to fall many times, right? But we're going to get back up. Sometimes it might take longer for some men to get back up, but we're going to get back up.
Let me ask you something. Since we're talking about that early growth period, you talk about all the mistakes, without giving away the whole book. Let's pick one. What was, looking back now, what was the biggest mistake you made?
The biggest mistake I made was in one of my relationships and not believing the partner in that one relationship. Because in that one relationship, because I never believed that partner, I believed that she was lying to me. I found out that I had a kid, right? And I never was a part of my child's life, man. So I missed so many years of my child. And although we're together now, our relationship we still have to work on it. You know what I mean? But it's a lot better than it's ever been. But we're still working on it, man, because I missed so many years. And it wasn't her fault. It was all my fault. A lot of the issues that I have were self-inflicted issues. And that's what we as men do. I mean, a lot of stuff that we do, man, we do to ourselves, and we just blame others. And I always say that we as men have been given a pass for so long, right? So, society has given us a pass. Women, especially Black women, have given us a pass from day one. And they've been supportive and everything to us, and they've given us a pass from day one. It's time for us to pay them back, man. It's time for us as men to stand up and be the men that God called us to be. And that's what this book is about, man. And I'm proud that I actually got it done, but it was not an easy process to get it done, because to get it done and to go through this, I had to go through my mess. And then I had to become accountable for all that mess as well.
So coming through the other side after the book,
Right.
you talked about how tough it was, how hard it was, I'm sure, emotionally and spiritually. But did you feel better? Was it a catharsis? What was the feeling once you were able to kind of process and kind of go through, once you really did that inventory and, that real honest, almost like that when you're standing in the mirror naked, and it's just you and your image, and you can lie to everybody else, but you can't lie to yourself. So what was it like when you got on the other side of that journey?
To me, it was empowering. But you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, this book leaves you naked for the world to see, right? And some of the world's gonna laugh, and they can say, "Man, you did some stupid stuff, right?" But I know that, and I laughed about some of it, but some of it was kind of painful, you know what I mean? But to get through it, to me, was empowering, and that's the gift I wanted to give to boys and to men. I wanted to give them that empowerment tool so that they can say, "Hey, wait a minute, I can fall, and I don't have to stay down." There's a lot of people that will stay down when they fall, but no, man. Michael Jordan said, "I can fall 7 times, but I'm gonna get back up 8 times." So, and that's the gist of this book, man. And the reason why I wrote this book is because I think that it's time for us as men to take ownership to manhood, to redefine it, right? To make it more of a respect, to teach men how to respect one another. Because in life, as men, our biggest competition is other men, right? So we always butt heads with other men, man, because we don't respect other men. It's the funniest thing to me was when I told the man, I walked up to this guy and said, "Man, I like that coat you got on, man. I really wish I could get a coat like," and he just looked at me like, "Why is this dude asking me about my coat, man?" And I guess he felt kind of like you can't tell a man, like I like your haircut, I like the way you look, or you can't do anything like that. But it was, to me, I was like, "Nah, man, I just like your coat, man. Where'd you get it from?" and stuff like this. But men, we're kind of standoffish. We kind of got all them walls built up around our masculinity, right? That so you're being a little too friendly towards my masculinity. So you're infringing upon my masculinity. And it's crazy, man, the thought process that men have. And you know, it's funny because all my life, and I tell everybody this all my life, you know, I had a father in my life, but you know, me and my father weren't very close. And all my life, I've always wanted to hear my father say, yo, you did a good job. I respect you. I love you. I always wanted to hear my father say that. Son, I'm proud of you. Those are words that kids want to hear from their father. And the sad reality is that I did not hear those words from my father until he saw me on CNN doing a show on CNN. Wow. I was 56 years old. I was 56 years old, and I got a text from my father after I was on CNN saying, son, I'm so proud of you. I love you. And that's the first time in 56 years that I can remember my father ever saying anything like that there to me, to his son. How he cared about.
How did that make you feel in
man, I'm gonna tell you, man, I'm gonna tell you, man, I took the phone down and I put the phone on the ground and I cried, man, because for years, man, I hated my father. For years, I hated my father because of how I was treated by my father. And I tell everybody, I used to tell my mother this all the time, and I talk about this in the book. I used to tell my mother all the time that I thought I was adopted, right? And she would always, because I felt like I wasn't loved by my father. But my brother and sister never had that problem. See, I have an older brother and a younger sister. And they always received all the love and everything from my father. But, you know, I felt like I never did. So my thing was I was always adopted because my father never really accepted me. And that's a big thing in the book, that I went through that entire process in the book. And to me, it was eye-opening because I realized this years ago, that maybe my father, being the man that he was to me, made me the man that I am today. Right? If he'd have treated me like he treated my brother, maybe I'd be a different man.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe I wouldn't have any of my nonprofits. Maybe I wouldn't be doing any of this thing. All the awards and everything that I've received, to me, Geno, didn't mean much of anything. That one text from my father saying that I'm proud of you. He didn't even have to say he loved me. All he had to do was say, I'm proud of you. I love you. And to me, that meant the world to me. You know what I mean? At that moment, in time, I was lost in that moment in time. And that's the gift that a lot of young men don't get. A lot of young men don't have that father. A lot of young men don't have that father figure. So that's why we're doing the Boys to Men conference. And that's what this whole thing led up to. It was supposed to break out. The book was supposed to come out right before the Boys to Men conference. And
now explain for people who may not know, explain the Boys to Men conference for those who you may be watching from another area. What is that all about in a nutshell?
Well, the Boys to Men conference is our empowerment conference. We want to empower young boys and teach them what it's like to be men. We want to make sure that they understand how to respect one another, right? And that's the main point, is respecting one another. When I was a kid, man, if you stepped on somebody's shoes, you disrespected them. And the word respect meant, violence. If you're going to disrespect somebody, then the only way that you can get respect back is through violence. So our thing was to bring a group of people together, especially young kids together, bring mentors for those young kids that will be there as well, bring people like you, who was one of the hosts for the event as well. And let's just have conversations with our kids. Let's let them see positive role models, see positive Black men in the light of that we need to be seen in. So young kids I do a summer camp also. We call it Camp Hope. And for the first time, young kids, young Black boys get to see a young Black engineer. Well, not young Black engineer. They get to see a Black engineer. Now, when I first started, all the kids wanted to be basketball players, football players, all the things I wanted to be, right? Basketball players, football players, entertainers. They wanted to record albums, make records and same stuff that I did when I was a kid. And when I went the last year and I asked the kids what they wanted to be, when a young kid told me he wanted to be an engineer, I was like blown away.
Wow, I can imagine.
I want to be an engineer. I want to be like you. And to me, that's phenomenal.
So two things I want to ask you before you have to get out here and run out on me. One, I want to kind of go back a little bit, but I didn't want to interrupt. You were talking about some of the mistakes that you made. Some of the people who you wronged in whatever kind of way, were you able to reach out to some of those people or that person and atone to say, you know what, that one is on me. My bad. I'm sorry. Whether you accept it or not, I owe it to you to apologize, to acknowledge the mistake that I made for whatever reason. I caused you pain and emotional, whatever kind of way, and I just wanted to apologized to you, did you find yourself in that situation? And
That,
two, second part, because you talked about manhood, I want you to give the definition of manhood.
yeah, so that was the main purpose of the book, to atone for all my quote unquote sins, right? I mean, I have a lot of people to apologize to, but I have a lot of people that I had to thank as well, because there was a lot of people, especially the guys on the band, that actually took care of me. You know, they kept me on the straight path. They kept me away from drugs. You know what I mean? They couldn't keep me away from the women, but they kept me away from the drugs. And the women, you know, the sad reality was is a lot of the women that I was involved with, some of them are no longer here. So some of them passed away, and you know, I never got a chance to have that conversation with them. But every person that I find, and I'm looking for some of them to find them to apologize to them, because I believe I owe them that. You know, as a man, I definitely owe them that apology, man. And basically, it's your work. My worst nightmare basically is to have someone, you know, actually believe, you know, that I hate them because of something that happened many years ago. You know what I mean? And the thing is, even with my current ex-wife, man, that there's so many lessons that I learned, and so much value added, and so much respect that I have for the people in my past relationships and previous relationships, that, you know, people don't understand. I said, well, that's your ex, man. Why are you saying all this? It's still your ex. I said, yeah, it's my ex, but it's my ex. She was a good person. You know what I mean? It's not like she was, and we're so good at that, right? This ex, there's something wrong with them because they're the ex. But no, there wasn't nothing wrong with them when you were dating them. Why is there something wrong with them now that you're not? So yeah, so there's a lot of explaining to do. And as far as the manhood part, that's the meat and bones, man. That's everything. And basically what I did was I found men that I thought, you know, were good men. And that's basically something that I perceived, that this is a good man. This is a man I want to be like. So I would follow that man, and I would try to emulate that man. But that was that man. That wasn't me, right? I was trying to pretend to be somebody that I was not. But I learned so many lessons from those men, and as a boy, the biggest lesson that I learned is how to become emotionally detached. That is the biggest, that's the biggest lie in manhood, is that we have to be emotionally detached. We are void of emotion, void of feelings. We can have anger, we can have pain, but we can't have anything else, any other feeling. And the issue with that, Geno, is that the biggest feeling that we have is love. How can you show somebody that you love them if you can't show any emotion? It was hard for me, man. A lot of relationships that I had ended because of stupid things that I did. And it wasn't always the woman's fault. I mean, they might have done some stuff in the relationship that I wasn't happy with, but the relationships ended because of stupid things that we as men do, because we as men think we should do it. I have a nephew, and well, really he's my cousin, but I consider him my nephew because he was like, I knew him since he was a baby. And he reminds me so much of Kobe Bryant, man. I'm like, man, he's a good looking kid, right? And he was maybe 14, 15 years old, and he took me and introduced me to his girlfriend. And I did him just like his grandfather did me. I said, man, is that the only girl you got? Man, you're supposed to have about 5 or 6 girls on your arm. What's wrong with you? But I love her, is what he said. But I like her. I'm gonna stick with this man. Man, you're supposed to have 5 or 6 girls on your arm. What is wrong with you? And that mentality that we as men have is like we're lions in the jungle. We're there to dominate and to control all the women that we can. You know, that is an archaic belief, man. And the sad reality is the way that we as men are raised, the things that we as men believe in, perpetuates violence.
Let me reinforce that point right there, and then I want you to say, if you speak, if you could look in the camera and speak to a young brother, and when we say brother, it doesn't matter what you look like, because you're still a human. You know, when I see a child, because I talked about the incident with the 9-year-old child. It was a black girl in Rochester, New York, that got pepper sprayed in her eye, and I just talked about when I see a child, Butch, I see a child. So my instincts as a dad kicks in. It doesn't matter what the child looks like. It doesn't matter what language the child speaks. If I see a child in distress, my natural instincts in terms of just being a human, the compassion and empathy and humanity in me kicks in and I see a child and I want to assist the child. But the quick story, real quick to go back, to piggyback on what you were saying, I told my mother long before I got married and met Damaris, met my wife, that I was at a point in my life to where I just figured it was going to be Team Geno. Now I know this is really arrogant, narcissistic sounding, but I was in this state of mind. I didn't think that I was ever going to find one woman that had everything, just the total, everything that I thought I was looking for. And, but it didn't turn out that way, because if you talk to anybody that knows, any of my longtime friends in Chicago, it was like, Geno, he'd be the last dude if anybody ever get married. But my mother told me something. And actually, I got to be honest. My late dad told me something. He said, that wasn't in you. And my mother said, God didn't want you to be that, because God knew that's not who you were. So what you said is so profound, is that we've been socialized. We've adopted other people's cultures and ideologies and beliefs and bad habits. And we've been taught that a man is supposed to act a certain way and feel a certain way and not feel a certain way. And to prove your manhood, we measure that. The metric is in really twisted things in terms of, how many women that you can have or sleep with, or, how much money. We tied into, materialistic and things that are just irrelevant. But I say that to say that there's so many of us that's not really being our true selves.
Right.
Because, we want to appeal to our boys, and, we want to we want to look like, we're the dude, because so many of us have been brainwashed with this twisted sense of manhood. And so what you said is, I just wanted to share that story, because listen, there are many of us. I'm probably worse than you are. I can't tell you, some of my ex-girlfriends, they come on the show, they be like, Geno, his ass, whoa. I was never violent. And you and I both are anti-domestic violence advocates. But, still, I was a piece of work. As a matter of fact, Damaris will probably tell you, his ass is still a piece of work. not as much as he was, but yeah, you still a piece of work. But
Geno, you were just like all other men, man. You wore a mask, just like all little boys out there. We have a mask, and we wear that mask because that mask allows us to hide behind who we really are.
Yes.
And that's it, man. Pick a boob, take the mask off, man, is what we're saying. Be our authentic selves as men. It's empowering to men. And the sad reality, Geno, is I learned this by going to women's conferences. You know what? I was empowered going to women's conferences that empowered me as a man, which is really, really weird. And just like you, Geno, man, when me and my first wife split up, I was Team Butch, man. I was done. I would never get married again until I met Lisa, man.
Yeah.
And that woman just changed everything about me, man. Everything. And she just means the world to me, man. And to be honest with you, man, she allowed me to be my authentic self. You know what I mean? I mean, there was no judgment when I didn't have to be angry. I didn't have to be mad and throw stuff. If it hurt, I could say that it hurt. You know what I mean? I could express that emotion around her. And I didn't feel like, like I would be belittled or be treated any differently. And that's empowering to men to understand that, yes, I can do this and it won't change anything.
And
it doesn't change anything.
And it is okay.
It's okay.
And Lisa allowed you to do it. Damaris allowed me to do it. It is okay to emotionally invest into another human being. We as men have been taught that you are weak or you are less than a man, and kids use like, oh, well, that's acting gay, a derogatory term. And no, it has nothing to do with your sexuality. It has everything to do with your humanity. And it's okay. But we've been taught for so long that if you emotionally invest, because the fear is, here's the fear, Butch, and I know you know this. See, society has taught women that if you're hurt emotionally, it's okay. I mean, women's support groups and society said, well, men are going to do that anyway. So it's okay. It's like society expects us to be assholes and to hurt somebody, and for women emotionally to be, victimized in a lot of cases. But society has brainwashed us backwards. We've been reverse engineered to like, no, you can't emotionally invest. Like you said, you got to put on a mask. You got to hide. You can't show somebody that you love. You can't show another brother and say, I love you without, somehow tying sexuality into it or weakness. No, you're human. It's about your humanity. And once we can understand that, and because I tell young men and older, but young men when I speak to, I said, listen, it is okay. We have to learn how to invest emotionally, because we have been taught that the most dangerous thing, if you make that emotional investment and it blows up in your face, you get hurt. It's like society has said the worst thing that can happen to you as a man is to be hurt, especially by a woman. You're less than a man. You let a woman, hurt you, man. You got sprung. You crying over it. Why are you crying? But you're human.
All these women out here.
Yeah, but you're human.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you wrote this book. Hey, listen, in closing, and I want you to tell everybody where they can get the book, and we talk about the seminars when we get on the other side of COVID. Speaking to some young men right now, troubled young brothers, so many cities, these brothers wilding out, shooting each other, carjacking. What's the 3 most important things that you would tell these young brothers, just young men of any race, to be the best? It's okay to be the best versions of themselves. If you had to explain to them what real manhood looks like, what would you say to them?
Yeah. My first thing when it comes to real manhood is it's not defined by the gun that you have on your hip, man. And a lot of these kids out in the street think when they get a gun, man, they become a man. And that's just definitely not the truth, man. And a lot of young brothers out there have been misled. And the sad reality is we're not being raised by our parents anymore. We're being raised by our buddies in the streets. Yeah. And I want young kids to think for themselves, but what they need to do and what young kids need is they need to see role models. They need to see more men like you, Geno. They need to see more men out there, positive men out there that tell them that they're worthy and that they're worth it. You know what I mean? I tell everybody, we know what the mother's role is in the family dynamic, but what is the father's role? What is the father's role? I always wondered what the father's role was. The father validates everything. He's the person who validates everything. He validates your mother's love, that you're worthy. He validates everything, man. And if you don't have a father, it's okay, man. I mean, you can find a big brother that'll do the same. Because when my father wasn't there, I have 4 big brothers on the band, and man, that they validated me each and every day. They showed me that I was worthy, and they took care of me, man. So find yourself somebody that's going to be in your circle, and realize, man, that people that are in your circle, you got to find people that want the same thing that you want. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to find people out there that are going to be for you 100%. Some people, and you'll find this out in life, that some people don't want to see you succeed. Some people are out there just to see you fail. And that's the hard part, and I say that to me, everybody says, man, you got 4,000 friends, 5,000 friends on Facebook. You got all these people on Instagram following you, man. You got a lot of friends. I said, them people just want to see me fail. I don't know half of them people.
True.
The people, I don't know half of them, but they just want to see me fail. They want to find out if I fail or not. But, and I will fall. I've fallen before, but I'm going to get back up. And that's what I want kids to understand, man, that when you fall, you can get back up. It's easy, man. And other brothers will be there to help you get back up.
And we got to do that. We definitely got to be our brother and sisters keepers, because that's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure you get into that in the book. We'll get into that. Is that, and I say this, the first example of how a man should conduct himself, for better or for worse, for a young girl, is her father. Whether he's in her life or not, he is setting that example from the time she is a little girl. How a man should be, how a man should conduct himself, how a man should love his daughter or love his spouse or his significant other. That is the first example, for better or for worse. So I'm real passionate about that. That's a whole different conversation. So let everybody know where they can get the book, man. And if you want to talk about, I know you want to do the conference that hopefully COVID will allow us to do it. But for people watching out there, they want to get some more information, or maybe you can take this as a model and a template that you can take and use in your city, in your community, in your neighborhood. So give them some contact information and let them know where they can go pick up a copy of the book.
Yeah, well, the book is easy to be found. It's on Amazon. All you gotta do is just click on Amazon, go in the search engine, and just put in "A Man Like Me," and the book will pop up, man. So order it. I'll be honest with you, it was cleansing for me. It was empowering for me to be able to share my story, share my journey. And most men will have the same journey. There's a chapter in the book, and it's called The Map. And that was going to be a training session that I was going to do. That's why I wrote the book, because there's a map, and that map is my map to manhood. And it is just, it's the meat and bones of that journey. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Go there, Amazon. It's on Kobo. It's on Barnes and Noble. All you have to do is just put in the title "A Man Like Me," and it'll come up. My journey to manhood, right?
Hey, that good. Product placement. There you go, right there.
Yeah, there it goes right here. It's back here
go.
behind me. So I mean, it's just a bunch of silhouettes, because I didn't want my face on a book. You know what I mean? I'm not that dude, man. And there's a bunch of silhouettes there because it represents all men.
Yeah.
This journey is not just my journey. It's all men's journey, and all men have that journey. And some of the men have the same path, but some of the men might take a right, and some might take a left. Some might go straight. So it's interesting to find out, the turns that I took, and a lot of men relate to that, the turns that I took. So
all right, I'm gonna let you out here on this one. This is a passion for both of us.
right.
Violence against women.
Right.
It's not a woman's problem. It's a man's problem. And men, we can end it. We have to end it. So I'm saying that to say this. If you are watching, or if you know someone who is being violent toward their significant other, their domestic partner, or whatever, or if men or any man watching, looking into this camera right now, we want you to know. I want you to know that not only is that not the way to go, and look, I'm not going to preach or lecture to you, but this is what I ask. All I ask is that you reach out to this brother. He's got an organization. His wife has an organization where she works with victims of domestic violence and their family. But Butch does a lot of work in terms of intervention, speaking with men who have or are going through, still in that, dealing with the anger, the rage, the pain, or whatever it is that's causing them to strike out against someone who they supposedly love. All I ask is that you reach out to this brother, and you can talk to him, or he'll plug you in with someone that's doing the work that can have a conversation with you to change the trajectory and the path that you're on. Butch, are you good with that, man?
Right. And thanks a lot, Geno. The name of the organization is Real MAD, Real Men Against Domestic Violence. It's the Palmetto Hope Network. It's the home of Real MAD. So if you go to palmettohopenetwork.org, you can find out about us. And all my life, I was thinking about what we were going to do when it comes to men. And I always thought about the mindset of men. But I realize now it's not about changing the mindset of men to end violence against women. It's about exposing and changing the culture that condones it. Because we as a culture allow this to happen. And when we as a culture and we as a men decide that we're not going to let this happen anymore, then we'll end it. Just like Geno says, man, ending violence against women starts with men, and that's what I've been about. That's been my platform for 12 years, and it'll be my platform to the end. So thank you, Geno, for having me, man. It's always good to see you, bro, and it's always good to talk to you, man, because you are one of the brothers that I consider to get it, brother. You know what I mean? So I don't have to have a conversation. I don't have to explain things to you, because you've already got it. And there's so many brothers like you, and a lot of people don't realize that over 80% of men will never hit a woman. Will never hit a woman, but we got 20% of men that will, and those are the men that we need to have these conversations with. We need to teach them, another way.
Right.
Because and that's what we do.
If you drill down this rabbit hole of anger, when you strike out against a woman, I think about what my mother went through when I was a young man, and she was moved away from Chicago. The man who I attacked when I was 4.5 because he was beating on her. And I tried to fight him and I leaped into him. I tried to tackle him like I was a football player. At the core of that violence and that anger and rage there's pain. There is some kind of trauma. And Butch, we've got to learn. We've got to have the hard conversations. More important, we got to be able to listen and get men who are dealing with whatever anger and rage and resentment that creates the climate to make you take that anger and turn it towards somebody you love. We got to, it's like a computer, it's like a hard drive. We've got to reboot that computer. We've got to put a new hard drive in. We got to get rid of that virus. But you got to be able to identify, so it's brothers like Butch that will create a climate, a non-judgmental climate. Let's get to the root. What is at the source? What's at the core of this pain?
Right.
Because when you put your hands on a woman, 99% of the times, the source, the true source of that anger has nothing to do with that woman. It has everything to do with you.
Yeah.
See, you've got to be able to talk about that. And we got to create a climate to where we allow you, without judgment, but accountability, and understand that we are creating a new culture to where this behavior is not acceptable. But we will create a climate to where we will help you heal, because it's about you got to heal you first. And Butch does his work. Feel free to reach out to him. Give him all your social media addresses. Somebody wants to reach out to you, man. Reach out to you right now and try to get that help.
It's Butch Kennedy. Butch Kennedy on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. I'm all Butch Kennedy everywhere. So look me up, hook me up, and Geno, very powerful. Everything that you said is exactly what we talk to men about. I'll be meeting with men next week. COVID in a COVID-free environment, hopefully. With masked up and everything, but we're gonna have some the same type of conversations you're talking about there as well.
Because
so I'm looking forward to that.
COVID has really created a situation where, because of the quarantining, there have been so many women and men too, but the majority of victims of domestic violence are women. There's so many women now that have been forced to quarantine with the men who abused them. And they really feel they don't have anywhere to turn. And like I say, Butch and Butch's wife, his beautiful wife, Lisa, she's been doing great work for over 2.5 decades. She's got an organization. So for any woman out there, or anyone that knows any woman in danger, or if there's a woman that's watching this show that feels that she doesn't have any hope because somebody told you nobody wants you, you can't go anywhere, you got 3 kids or 4 kids. No, you do have hope. And there is somewhere you and your children can go to be safe. But please give the viewers that information, because I know you and your wife, Lisa, she and her organization, they are amazing. So please share that information real quick.
Yeah, and that is Palmetto Hope Network. You can go to www.palmettohopenetwork.org. It's the home of Real Men Against Domestic Violence. And just like Geno says, Lisa is phenomenal, man. We help victims of domestic violence. We house them, we feed them, we clothe them, whatever they need to get out of a domestic violence situation. That's what we're there for. So reach out to us if you need anything. That's what we're there for.
A man like me, my journey to manhood and the mistakes I made along the way. Butch Kennedy, I've taken up too much of your time. Thank you, beautiful wife, for letting me steal you for too long. And Butch is going to be he and his wife Lisa will be a regular contributor to the show, because domestic violence is something that goes on like too much. I don't know what the statistics are. You probably know, but is it every 9 seconds? Thank you.
Every 9 seconds was the last thing, but I think it went down to every 7 seconds. Wow. It's crazy. And it's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men.
Wow.
That will be victims of domestic violence. So we have the conversations with men and women and the clergy and our kids. We have to have these conversations to any and everybody that's willing to listen, man. And they're powerful conversations, but they're honest conversations. We don't just tell them that all men are abusers, because some women are abusers as well. So we have to look at both sides of the angle and figure out what's going on in the house. And that's what we do, man. And it's good to have a female counterpart that's there. And it's also good to have other people as part of that conversation. So let's have the conversation, man. But the most important part is for us as men to take back our manhood, man. We let society define who we are for so long, man. It's time for us as men to stand up and say, no, we will define our manhood. And that's what my book was. That's the main reason for my book, is to start a conversation that we can all sit that back, that men can come together, all men can come to the table and say, this is jacked up about being a man. And there's so many great things about being a man. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's so many great things about being a man, but there's some jacked up things about being a man also. And we need to identify those things. We need to eradicate those things. And we just need to change for the better, to become better men for our women, man, because they deserve it.
And our children.
And our children, especially our children.
Say it loud for the people in the back to hear.
Especially our children.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Butch Kennedy, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for your time. We will be talking again. I know we'll be probably talking again too soon about the subject about domestic violence and violence against women. But I'm here for it. I'm built for it. And this is part of my purpose. And I know something that you said your goal is to not have to ever have this conversation again.
Right.
Let's end it so we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Right. And we need to end it, man. I don't want to get to be 90 years old and still talking about domestic violence. You know what I mean? So just like, I don't want to get to be too old. With men in general, man, and when we find out what it is to be a man, we kind of hold on to that and don't share it. So I decided that's not, we're gonna break that cycle. So my book is my attempt to show people what it means and how I got there, so I can share that with other men so that they can get there easier, man. You know what I mean? We kick the doors in, Geno, man. You don't have to take the hinges. We took the hinges off. You don't have to open. You don't have to do anything. We took the doors off, the hinges off. You can just walk through the door, man. Come on now. Come on, fella. Just walk right on in, man. We open the doors for you, man. It's all there. It's all there, man. We make it easy for you. So let's just do it.
Butch Kennedy, thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Love and respect to you as always. Thank you, man.
Love you, brother. Love you back, man.
Love you. That's a good brother right there. Butch Kennedy. Make sure you get his book, Man Like Me, My Journey to Manhood and the Mistakes I Made Along the Way. I could have wrote that book too. It's a whole other conversation. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life as always. God bless each and every one of you. God, most of all, thank you for letting me do the Geno Show. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Geno Jones YouTube channel. I do the show daily, Monday through Friday, around 6:30 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to be a sponsor on the Geno Jones Show, I'd be honored to have you as a sponsor. If you'd like to advertise, I'd be honored to have you advertise. If you would like for me to be a pitch man for your product, your service, your company, I'm the king of pitch men. I say that in all modesty and humility. I know that's probably sound like an oxymoron. How can you brag and say you're like the king on one end and do it in a modest and humble way? I know. I'm complicated. What can I say? So you can leave me a message right here on my YouTube channel, or you can email me. Geno Jones Show. That's how you spell Geno, Geno. Geno Jones Show @gmail. All right. Mother, I love you. Just thank you for just always just being you. Because otherwise I'd be talking for 2 hours. Thank you just for being you. And thank you for your support and watching. Shout out to my hairstylist and barber, Mr. Markel Bailey. Check him out on Instagram, Kelby Cuttin, KELBECUTTIN. My wardrobe consultant. Yes, sir. You like this jacket? This is my man Bruce Gage, Gage, on Instagram. Also, he's got flyballthestore.com. He's one of the few officially licensed vendors to carry beautiful official Negro League gear. So, but Bruce Gage on Instagram. So he's the official wardrobe and consultant and stylist for the Geno Jones Show. All right, tomorrow we'll see you Thursday around 6:30 p.m. Once again, like, share, and subscribe. Share these episodes with everybody you know. And listen, if you missed my back episodes, Yesterday, Lettucey was my guest. We had a great conversation. I've had a conversation with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the iconic R&B singer Lenny Williams, the iconic R&B singer Larry Dotson, former lead singer for the Bar-Kays, Chris Jasper from the Isley Brothers, Reggie Calloway from Midnight Star. A shout out to Dr. Damon Arnold, who I'm going to have on the show pretty soon. Dr. Arnold is out of Chicago. He was the public health director for the state of Illinois for several years. He is a public health and infectious disease expert. And we're going to come back again and talk about why it's so important that especially we as black people in America get this COVID-19 vaccine. And he's going to dispel and get rid of some of these lies and myths and rumors that's been going around in barbershops and hair salon and nail salons and, you know, online on social media. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I really do. Remember, love is not a noun. Love is a verb. It's an action word. You show love by your actions and your behavior consistently. Love is not one day. Love is every day. 365, like Anita Baker's song, 365 days a year and 366 in a leap year. Until next time, thank you. Make sure you go back and check out some of the previous and past episodes of the Geno Jones Show right here on my YouTube channel.
Subscribe and tune in to the next episode of the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube.